Hello, this is going to be the 2024 Invitational B Number Sense test. I'm going to guide you through all the questions on the test and hopefully explain how to solve each of them. Let's begin. Okay, 210 minus 309 plus 2024. The best way to solve this is to add everything one digit at a time. So 4 plus 0 minus 9, you have to add an extra 10 to make that not be a negative number, and if you do that, you get 5. Then you added 10 to your ones place. You need to subtract 1 from your tens place to counteract that. So 1 plus 2 minus this 0 and minus the 1 you used in the ones place gets you 2. And then your same problem lies with the 2 minus 3. You need to add an extra 10 there to counteract that. 2 plus 10 minus 3 is 9. And then since you added tens in the tens or in the hundreds place, you need to subtract 1 from the thousands place to get you 1. So 1925. 2024 divided by 4 is equal to what? Well, if you realize 4 times 500 is 2000, it's not too hard to figure out. So 500 plus 24 divided by 4 will get you 500 plus 6, because you're basically dividing in two parts. 2000 divided by 4 plus 24 divided by 4, and you get 506. 5.6 times 11, and then 6 put 6 point, or then we're using our 11s trick, which means put the ones place. So 6, add these two numbers, 5 and 6, to get 11. So put a 1, carry a 1. Then you have this 5 plus the 1 you carried over to get 6. So 61.6. 3.09 plus 2 and 1/10. Well, just convert 2 and 1/10 to a decimal and add them together. Pretty easy. 5.19. 32 times 35 is what? Well, you can convert 35 to 7 over 2 times 10, because you can imagine 3.5 times 10 in a way. So then 32 divided by 2 is 16, times 7 is 112, times 10 is 1,120. 13 cubed, you should have your cubes memorized. 13 cubed is 2197. 7, LCM of 28 and 64 is what? Well, first, to figure out the least common multiple, you need to figure out the greatest common factor first. So greatest common factor of 28 and 64. 64 can be imagined as 4 power to 3, and 28 as 4 times 7. So your greatest common factor is 4. So once you have that, you multiply the two numbers and divide by your greatest common factor. So you get 64 times 7, 60 times 7 plus 4 times 7, 420 plus 28, 448. 3 over 8 is what in a percent? Well, 3 over 8, if you convert that to a decimal, you get 0.375. Multiply by 100 to turn into a percent, 37.5%. Okay, then there's your dividing by 11 remainder trick, which means you alternate adding and subtracting each number. So 4 minus 2 plus 3 minus 0 plus 2 minus 6 plus 0 minus 1. Do all that, keeping track of it as it goes. So 4, 2, 5, 5, 7, 1, 1, 0. Remainder of 0. Then 2 hours and 50 minutes is how many seconds? There are 3,600 seconds in an hour. Multiply that by 2. Add 15 minutes times 60 seconds. This isn't too hard. 3 over 2 times 60 times 15 is 900. And you get 8,100. 11 Roman numerals. M is 1,000, C is 100, X is 10, V is 5, I is 1, and D is 500, and L is 50. Wow, they really have pretty much every single Roman numeral they can ask you. So 2,324, 5 minus 1, because the 1 is before it, or the I is before it. So 2324 minus 550, 550. And if you do that, it's a bit hard to do in your head, but if you do it, you get 1774. 31 times 31 over 34. This is your trick with the whole number and the fraction that's has the same numerator. So what you do is you figure out the distance between the denominator and the numerator, so 3. You do 31 minus that 3 to get 28. That's going to be your whole number. And then your fraction is going to be the distance squared. So 3 squared is 9 over 34. 13, 22.5 plus 8% tax is what? So what you do is the 22.5 plus the tax, which is 2 over 25 is 8%, just 8 over 100 simplified, times 22.5. So 22.5 plus, you can imagine 225 divided by 25 is 9. Divide that by 10 because there's a decimal here. You're adding 0.9. 0.9 times 2. So 22.5 over 25 is 0.9, times 2 is 1.8. So 22.5 plus 1.8 is 2430. 14, 2 divided by negative 20 times 9 minus 4. Basically just what you do. You can simplify this to negative 1 over 10, negative 9 over 10 minus 4, negative 4 and 9/10. 53 times 53, so you can imagine it as 50 plus 3 squared, and then you can use FOIL for that. 50 squared plus 3 times 50 times 2, or 300, and then plus 3 squared, or 9. So 2809. And a similar process is done for 52. 50 plus 2, 2500 plus 200 plus 4 is 24704. And then problem 17 is just problem 15 minus problem 16, as you can see, which is 105. Difference of squares is the sum of the two values times the difference between the two values. So 102 times 6. Divide 102 by 2, multiply 6 by 2, and you get 51 times 12, which fits the format they want. 19. Number of integers between 1 and 15 that are relatively prime to 15 is what? Well, to do that, you got to figure out how many numbers are relatively prime to 15 first of all. So what you do is you put it in terms of primes. So 15 is 5 times 3. Then you subtract 1 from those primes and multiply them together. So 4 over 5 times 2 over 3. And then you multiply it by your entire 15. So this is basically just 4 times 2 is equal to 8. And then 1 is relatively prime to 15, and 1 is not between 1 and 15. That's between is non-inclusive. So 8 minus 1 is 7. 20, 16, 23 plus 2024 times 28. Give me a sec. This is working fine. Yeah. Hello. Cool. Okay, 1623 plus 2000 times 28. Just rounding these things to easy numbers easier to work with. 2000 times 28 is 56,000 plus 1600, 57600. And that'll easily be in your range. Round square root of 2 to the nearest hundredths place. Well, square root of 2 you should have memorized to be 1.414. Round that and you get 1.41. 19 over 33 is equal to AB, AB, AB. These are digits. Then A plus B is what? Well, 19 over 33, if you multiply the numerator and denominator by 3, you get 57 over 99, which is a form we can work with. 57 over 99 is the equivalent of 57 repeating. So 57, 57, 57, which fits the format we're looking for, and will get you a value of 12. 21,024 plus 30,924 is what? Well, you just have to write that, or you just have to understand what those values are. You can add them partly at a time. 24 plus 924 is 948. 21,000 plus 30,000 is 51,000. You can do it in segments if that makes adding easier for you. Then 24, 2 plus 7 divide 7 times 30 minus k divided by 7 has a remainder of 6. You can take the remainder whenever on any number, basically whenever you want. So 2 doesn't need to be changed. 10 divided by 7 has a remainder of 3. Change that. 30 divided by 7 has a remainder of 2. Change to that. And then minus k will get you 6. So 8 minus k will get you 6. K is equal to 2. 210 base 8 is what in base 10? Well, how bases work is this is equivalent to 1. This is equivalent to this digit times the base. This digit times the base squared. So 8 squared times 2 plus 8 times 1 gets you 136 as your answer. 104 times 107, you use your near hundreds multiplying trick. So what you do is you multiply the two places at the end. So 4 times 7 equals 28. Write that down. And then you have to figure out how many, then you have to add up the distance between 100 for these. So this is 4 away from 100. This is 7 away from 100. So 4 plus 7 is 11. So 111, that 111, and then the 28. 27, let P is equal to primes. How many three-member subsets of P are there? Well, P, the number of subsets is equivalent to total number of elements, combination, number of members, and your subset. So 6 combination 3, which is defined as 6 factorial divided by 3 factorial divided by 6 minus 3 factorial, or 6 times 5 times 4 divided by 6, or 20. Find x if 1 over x plus 1 over 5 is equal to 1 over 2. Well, put these into a common base. 1 over x plus 2 over 10 is equal to 5 over 10. So you need to convert this fraction here to 3 over 10, which can only happen when you're dividing by 10 over 3. So that's your x value. How many integers between 17 and 85 are divisible by 9? Well, 85 divided by 9 is a little greater than 9, so there are 9 numbers divisible by 9 less than 85, and not including 0. 9 is not between 17 and 85, so you can ignore that case, subtracting the 9 integers by that one that's not included, and you get 8. 30. Square root of a value. Since it's square root, you got to put the numbers in groups of 2. So 1 group, 2 group, 3 groups. They're going to be 3 digits in your answer. Then once you have that, you should see this 30 is close to 5.5 squared, which you should know how to do because of the 5 times 6. 5 squared, right, 25. 5 times 6 is equal to 30. So it's pretty close to that. So you can just write 5, 5, and then you need 3 digits. So write an extra 0. And that'll very easily be in range. 3092 times 8 plus 24. Well, 3092 times 8 is equivalent to 3100 minus 8 times 8. And then this is counteracting that minus 8 times 8. So it's really just the 3100 times 8 that's left over. If that seems a little hard for you, then you can do 30 times 8 plus 8, and then multiply it by 100. 240 plus 8 is 248, and add the 2 zeros at the end. 5b6 is equivalent to all this information. You don't really need to solve, but the only square that starts with 5 and ends with 6 is 576. There's only 2 squares, 23 squared and 24 squared, that start with a 5. And the other one gets you 529, so that's clearly not it. 33, x cubed plus 6x squared plus 12x plus 8, f of 8 is what? Well, you can plug it in and solve it, or if you having a good day, you can realize that this is equivalent to x plus 3 cubed, because you can imagine, I'm not going to explain exactly how, but this x squared would be gotten with multiplying this 2 times 3 combination 2, and then this linear term would be 2 squared times 3 combination 1. If you don't understand anything I'm saying, then just ignore it, and you can plug it in if you want. But yeah, x plus 2 cubed gets you 1,000. Given 1, 1, 3, 5, 6, 12, p cubed, 15, what is p times q? The fact that this starts with a 1 and 1 should indicate that it's a split series, most likely. So as you can see, it goes the split series, so 1, 3, 6. Now these are triangular numbers. You're adding 2, adding 3, adding 4, adding 5, etc. And then these are pentagonal numbers, adding 4, adding 7, adding 10, etc. So 6 plus 4 is 10. 12 plus 10 is 22. 22 times 10 is 220. Three numbers are in the ratio 3, 4, 2. If their sum is 63, the smaller number is what? Well, 2 times sum ratio plus 3 times sum ratio plus 4 times sum ratio is equivalent to 9 times sum ratio, which has to be equal to 63. So your ratio is 7. Multiply your smallest value here, 2, by that ratio, and you get 14. 36, 7 is what percent of 28? Well, 7 divided by 28 is 1/4. 0.25 converted to percent, 25%. 7.84 is what percent of 28? Well, 7.84 divided by 28 is 0.28. And you should know that because 28 squared is 784. So 784 divided by 28 is 28. And that's basically that value divided by 100 because it's this decimal right here. So 0.28. And then 28%. 53% of 28 is what? Well, you just multiply your two numbers. 0.53 times 28. You should know how to FOIL ones places, tens and ones, tens and tens. Yeah. 39. Let x plus 7 over x minus 3 plus x minus 3 over x plus 7 equals 2b over c. What is b? This is a simplification of a Brian Heath trick that I'm not going to explain to you right now. But basically what you need to do is you need to figure out the distance between this 7 and this negative 3. Well, the distance between those is 10. 7 minus negative 3. And then you have to square that value, and that will get you b. So 100. Okay, this is a bit. Yeah, this 40 has a lot to it. First off, you have a cube root, which means we need groupings of 3. 210 and 309. Well, 210 is a little less than 6 cubed, which is 216. So you can approximate it to 59, 2 digits, because there are two groupings. And then you also have the square root of 30, 92, 10. Well, 30 is close to 5.5 squared, as we talked about earlier. And there are three groupings, so 3 digits, 550. And multiply them together. It's a little less than 60 times 550, which is just going to be. But you can do this a lot of ways. You can do 100, 1,000 or 1100 times 30. You can divide this by 5, multiply this by 5, and do 30 times 110. Lots of different ways, whatever you choose. You'll get 3,300, and you can remove a little off of that to make 100% sure it's in range. Okay, 41, 405 squared. Well, you're squaring with no number in the tens place. You can use a special trick for that. Do the 1 squared, gets you 25. Write that down. Then you have the ones times hundreds. So 4 times 5 plus 5 times 4, because there are two numbers being multiplied, technically. So yeah, 5 times 4 times 2 gets you 40. And then you do the 4 squared, which will get you 16. And that will be your answer. Positive geometric mean of 4 and 9 is what? Geometric mean is basically the nth root of all n of your terms multiplied. So square root of 4 times 9, because there are two numbers in that you're equating. 43, the coefficient of the x squared y cubed term of 2x minus y power to 5 is what? Well, it's x squared y cubed, so 5 combination 2 or 5 combination 3, whichever one you choose. 5 combination 3 is the start of your base, and then your x coefficient power to 2, and your y coefficient power to 3. So 10 times 4 times negative 1 is negative 40. 44, sum of the reciprocals of the first 7 triangular numbers. Sum of the reciprocals of first triangular numbers is 2 times the last number over 1 plus the last number. So 14 over 8, 7 over 4. 7 powered to 4 minus 1 is what in base 7? Well, 7 powered to 4 in base 7 is just going to be the equivalent of 1000, because 7 times digit 7 squared times digit, 7 cubed times digit, 7 fourth times digit. So you subtract 1 from that, and you just get a bunch of 6s. Because you have to add 7, or you have to add 7 on a side to compensate. 7 minus 6, you remove the digit, yada, yada, yada. 6, 6, 6, 6. 46, 210 base 4 plus 23 base 4 is what base 2? Well, okay. So we're going to be converting base 4 to base 2 as we go along. Let's start with the ones place in base 4. 0 plus 3 is 4 base, or 3 base 4. Convert 3 to base 2, and you will get a value of 1, 1, because 2 times 1 plus 1 is 3. And then you do the same thing with this 2 and this 1. So 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 is equal to 11 in base 2, or 1, 1 in base 2. And then finally, same thing for this, just 100th place, which is 2, which is 1, 0 in base 2. 2 times 1 plus 1 times 0. So write all that down and you'll get your answer. 47, if square root of 9, yeah, I'm not reading out all that. You can see, hopefully. Basically, for this to be 6, you need this entire square root to be 36. Well, there's a 9 here, which means you need to multiply that 9 by 4. So you need the result of this square root to be 4. Well, that can only happen if the inside is 16. Well, here's an 8. You have to multiply that 8 by 2 to get to 16. Well, what value will get you 2 from inside the square root? Well, you need a value of 4. X plus 7 is equal to 4. X is equal to negative 3. You're kind of doing like a recursive statement in a way. You're figuring out what number you need to do the next step. 48, the product of the roots of this equation is what? Product of the roots is C over A of a quadratic equation. So if you'd have to move this over to get 2x squared plus 3x minus 5, and then you do negative 5 over 2. So yeah, product of the roots is going to be your non-x coefficient over your x squared coefficient. Okay, 10 cubed minus 4 cubed divided by 10 minus 4, basically. We use the same formula we used before. Add up the two numbers, you get 14. Square it, and then subtract by the two numbers multiplied. 196 minus 40 is 156. Get your answer. 17 cubed approximated. Well, you should have 17 cubed memorized already. 4913. You can move on. 51. Let x minus y is equal to 9. 2x, that should be a plus y, by the way. I'll write it out for you. So is equal to 30. Find y. Well, if you add the two equations, you get 3x is equal to 39. X is equal to 13. And then 13 minus y is equal to 9. Y is clearly 4. 2, 3, 1, 1 divided by 11 has a remainder of what? Even though these are different bases, the fact that this is 1, 1 means you can still use the divided by 11 remainders trick, which means you add, subtract, etc. 1 minus 1 plus 3 minus 2 is 1. Get your answer. And then 2 times x minus the log base 4 of x, plug in 16. 2 times 16 is 32. Log base 4 of 16 is 2. Hopefully you know what log base is, and you should if you're getting to this portion of the test. 32 minus 2 is 30. The 16 plus 4 plus 1 plus the previous term times 1/4. This is a geometric series with your common rate of 1/4. So your first term times 1 over 1 minus your rate. 16 times 1 over 3 over 4. 16 times 4 over 3. 64 over 3. 5 power to 7 plus 6 power to 7 plus 8 divided by 7, remainder. These 5 and 6s, they're same distances from 0 and 11 respectively, so they cancel because the power is odd. And then you have to add, and then you just have the 8 left over for your remainder. 56, 3 pennies are tossed in the air. Probability that all 3 pennies land showing tails is what? Well, probability of a coin landing tails is 1 over 2. So if that happens 3 times, that's 1 over 2 power to 3, 1 over 8, 12.5%. The 11th term of this series is 130. What's the 10th term? Well, to get from the previous term to the next term, you're adding 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. You're adding the primes. You added the first prime to get to the second term, which following that sequence means you need to add the 10th prime to get to term 11. The 10th prime, if you calculate that out, is 29, or remember your series, 4, 4, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 2, 1, as your series of prime numbers, and you get a value of 29. 58, if the sides of an equilateral triangle are 2 square root of 3 inches long, then what's the altitude length? Well, in an equilateral triangle, the altitude is going to be equivalent to your height of your triangle, because that's just how it works. So your side, so you have to do tangent of 60 times your side over 2, because your height happens at the middle point of your side, as you can hopefully kind of see in the triangle I'm drawing out. So tangent of 60, equilateral triangles have 60 degrees. Tangent of 60 is square root of 3 times 2 square root of 3 over 2 gets you 3. 59, let 11, 3 over m times n, 4 over 5 equals 32 be what? And find m times n. Well, n equals 3 will get you a number too high for that, so n is equal to 2. Then you convert this into an improper fraction. 2 times 5 plus 4 is 14 over 5. 32 divided by that number. You only really have to care about the denominator. 32 divided by 14 becomes 16 over 7. So your denominator over here is going to be 7. So 2 times 7 is 14. 60, 27 power to 3 divided by 9 power to 6 times 3 power to 10 is what? So 3 power to 9 divided, so 27 is 3 power to 3. Multiply that by the 3 power, you get 3 power to 9. 9 is 3 squared. Multiply that 6 by 2. Divide by 3 power to 12. And then times 3 power to 10. Gets you 3 power to 7, which is equivalent to 9 power to 3 times 3 if that makes things easier to calculate. 729 times 3. This will very easily be in range. 61, 32 power to 11 divided by 23 has a remainder of what? Well, 32 power to 11 divided by 23 has the same remainder as this number minus 23 power to 11, so 9 power to 11. So if you square root this, multiply that by 2, you can get so you get 3 power to 22. And then once you have that, you can use your formula for overflowing powers. You have to figure out the number of relatively prime numbers. This is a prime, so every number other than itself is relatively prime, 22. 22 relatively prime numbers is 23. So take this power here, find the remainder when divided by 22, which is 0, and 3 power to 0 is 1. 62, 41 base 6, square root of that. Well, 41 base 6, 4 times 6 plus 1 is 25. Square root of that is 5. 5 base 10, which is the same in base 6. As you know, it's this place multiplied by 1. That's how all bases start. 2 rods is equal to how many feet? Well, there are 16.5 feet in a rod, so 2 times 16.5 is equal to 33. 64, secant squared of 60. Well, secant squared is 1 over cosine, and cosine of 60 is 1 over 2. So 2 squared is equal to 4, and that's secant squared. And then you have tangent squared of 60. Well, tangent of 60 is square root of 3. Square that, and you get 3. 4 minus 3 is 1. 12 degrees is equal to k pi radians. What is k? Well, to convert from 2 degrees to radians, you divide by 180 and multiply by pi. So you got 12 degrees, and you can divide that by 180 to get your value that you're looking for. So 12 divided by 180, hopefully you can realize that 12 times 15 will get you 180, so your number is 1 over 15. So yeah, 12 is 1/15 of 180. The fifth pentagonal number is what? Well, okay, you got, so basically what you do for this is you take the type of number, you subtract it by 2, or you take this number right here, subtract it by 2. So 5, no you don't. Why am I, sorry. You take this number right here and multiply it by the pentagonal relationship minus 2. So 5 times 3 gets you 15. You subtract it by the pentagonal relationship minus 4, so 5 minus 4. Pentagonal is 5, by the way, that's why you're putting in 5 here. 15 minus 1 gets you 14. And then you multiply by the outside number here and divide by 2. So 14 times 5 over 2 is 35. And you get your answer. If, yeah, I'm not reading all that out, where n and k are relatively prime, then what is k? Well, for this to get you, well, this is basically like adding fractions. So for you to get a common base of 15, this n has to be equal to 3, because 5 times 3 is 15. That's how you add fractions. You multiply, well, then you do the method you add multiplying fractions. The numerator on one times the denominator on another, plus the numerator on this times the denominator of the other. 4 times 5 plus 6 times 3 gets you 38. 38 root 15th root. It will be your answer. 68, let b is equal to 1, 10, 1, 3, 6, 10. Find the determinant of b. This is not the absolute value. This is the determinant. The answer is, in fact, negative. So what you do is determinant of matrix A times D minus B times C. 10 minus 18 is negative 8. 69, find g of f of negative 1/2 when f of x is equal to 2x minus 3 and g of x is minus 1 is that. So f of negative 1/2, plug in negative 1/2, you get negative 4. G of negative 4 is equal to negative 12 minus 1 is negative 13. 75 times 75 divided by 25 cubed times 75 times 25. Well, let's assign these multiplying by 25 to their corresponding divide by 25. So 75 divided by 25 times 75 divided by 25 times 75 divided by 25. And then there's a 25 left over. So you have all those convert to 3. So 3 cubed times 25, 27 times 25, which if it makes things easier, 27 over 4 times 100, and you get 775. If f of x is 5/8 minus 2x over 5, f of negative 1 of x is what? Well, okay, what you do is you convert it over to here, or you move this 5/8 over to the left, because you're going to have a y value, or because you're going to be, I can't explain, I'm sorry. Basically, you're looking for this b, which is going to be moving this value over here, and then to convert it to, this will be your new y, so you have to multiply by negative 5 over 2 to get to that y, which means that this is not negative 25 over 16, my apologies. Divided by negative 5 over negative 2 over 5. So once you do that, negative 5 over 8 divided by negative 2, divided by this fraction, negative 2 over 5, which means you flip it. Negative 5 over 8 times negative 5 over 2 gets you 25 over 16. G of x is equal to that. Find g prime of negative 2. We'll take the derivative power rule. 2 times 2x, 4x, minus 1 times 1 over 2. So minus 1/2. Then plug in negative 2, and you get negative 8 and 1/2. Find x, 11, yada, that's your range. If 3x plus 6 is equal to 8 mod 10. Mod means remainder when dividing by, basically. So the remainder when dividing by 10. So you can first off move this over, and you get 2. And then once you have that, you need to figure out 3 times what number gets you a remainder of 2 when dividing by 10. Well, next value of 4 will do that, because 3 times 4 is 12. Divide by 10 is a remainder of 2. So since it's mod 10, all the x's reset after it reaches 10. So you can add on 10 to your answer to be inside this range and get 14. So 34, h of x is negative x cubed. Yeah, I can't. My voice is getting tired. I'm not going to be reading all the stuff out. You can see. So take the derivative of your equation, negative 3x squared minus 6x, which you can simplify down to negative 3x and then x plus 2, which means you have two possibilities at x equals negative 2 and x equals 0. When x equals 0, the concavity has to be going up because the minimum will look like this, which means the derivative is or the slope is increasing. So once you do that, you have to figure out the second derivative and figure out when that value is positive. When x equals 0, it's negative 6, it's negative, which means your negative 2 must be the correct coordinate or x coordinate. Plug that back into this equation. It's a bit, yeah, this is a very hard question, but if you do that, you get a value of negative 4. Don't feel bad if you can't solve this. It is not easy. 75, let xy be the focus of y minus 2, 3x minus 5 squared. This is, no, I'm just bad. I'm sorry. Canvas is down, so I can't check it with my key. I'm just relying on my own ability to not be an idiot. So I'm sorry if there's any errors. If there are, please tell me and I'll correct myself. But basically, you have your equation right here. Well, your focus, your distance of your focus equivalent to the x squared coefficient, divide 1 over that divided by 4. So 1 over 3 and divided by 4 is 1 over 12, so that's going to be your distance. 2 plus 1 over 12 because this y is in point slope form at y equals 2. And you get a value of 2 and 1/12. Integral of this giant thing, well, 2 sine x cosine x is equivalent to sine of 2x if you know your double angle identities. So just integral of that. Well, integral of sine is negative cosine. And then you have to divide it by that 2 because chain rule. So negative 1 over 2 cosine of 2x. Plug in these two bounds and you get 0 minus 0, which is just 0. So 7, line tangent to this point has a y-intercept at y is equal to what? Well, okay, you need to figure out your slope. So take the derivative. You get x plus 3. And then, so you plug in negative 6 for that, and you get a slope of negative 3. So negative 3, x plus 6 minus 1. And you plug in 0 as your x, and you get negative 19. Given 4, 9, 25, 49k, 169, 289, find k. Well, this is 2 squared, 3 squared, 5 squared, 7 squared, 13 squared. These are all the prime squared, 121. 309 times 16, it's best to do this in segments. 300 times 16 plus 9 times 16. Easier to do 9 times 16 first. 9 times 16 is 160 minus 16 is 144. 44, carry the 1. 300 times 16 is 4,800 plus 1 is 49. And you write that. 797 divided by 87.5% times 7 over 10 is what? Well, you have your number, and you need to figure out what this is. Well, 87.5% is 7/8. Multiply that by 7/10, and you get 49 over 80. And then so what you do is, now that you have your fraction, 49 over 80, first of all, that's pretty close to 50 over 80, or 5 over 8. So then once you have that, you're dividing by it, so you flip it. So 800 times 8 over 5, 6,400 divided by 5, which is pretty close to 1,300. All right, that's the entire test. I hope you enjoyed or learned something. If not, please ask me in person. I'll give you a better explanation. The problem with these videos is that I tell you the ways to solve them, but there are certain tricks that I can't really explain at writing down or speaking or without speaking for a really long time that I use to save brain energy because you're not really expected to put this equation into your head. You're expected to uh, realize that the slope is -3, and then you need to go 6 in the positive x, so -3 times 6 is equal to -18, and you add that to -1. You don't need to keep this entire equation. So yeah, I promise you there's easier ways to do most of the stuff there's easier ways to think about most of the stuff I said. They're just really hard to teach. And you can come up with some of that stuff on your own. That's the beauty of number sense. Find your own way to do things quickly. I just tell you the formulas, you can come up with your imagination part. See you guys later.